Nigerian Senate probes implementation of 2017 budget, raising questions on policies, synergy and salary shortfalls. How well is the budget taking care of the need of the people? And President is giving his words ahead of the forthcoming Anambra governorship election. The President says the election will be free and fair as the people of Anambra State prepare to head to the polls. Hello and welcome everyone to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbaloye in Lagos. Well, it promises to be a fast-paced and detailed show tonight. Let's get started, shall we? It is official, former, and whatever you may call it right now, it's a final one because the Supreme Court has spoken. A former lawmaker, Herman Hembe, now has a replacement in the House of Representatives. Someone will say, finally, isn't it? Because today, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, sworn in Dorothy Mato, who was declared the authentic representative of Valinkia Akonsusha Federal Constituency of Benue State. The Supreme Court has sacked former lawmaker Herman Hembe and asked him to refund all monies received since 2015. Mrs. Mato's swearing in is coming over 3 months since the Supreme Court made the pronouncement. Well, Anambra election is fast approaching. Well, it's a matter of a few weeks now. And President Muhammadu Buhari is assuring Governor Willie Obiano of free and fair elections. Governor Obiano revealed this after a meeting with President Buhari at a presidential villa today.
Yeah, that APGA plays clean. We do not believe in rigging. APGA has never rigged any election. All we want for is, for the umpires to be unbiased, free and fair election, and he will get the result. He likes governors like me who are hardworking, who are delivering on what people can see, who are bringing dividend of democracy to their people. That's what the president wants. He doesn't care your party. He wants to know that you're doing well in this area, in that area, and that's how a president should work. It's reassured free and fair election. That's what should be important to me.
See, talking about stories coming from the president, it seems a lot has happened today from that corridor. The president held 2 separate meetings with Governor Akeredolu of Ondo State and Minister of Solid Mineral Development, Kayode Fayemi. Well, Governor Akeredolu made a case for a deep-sea port in his state for easy export of his abundant mineral resources. The Minister of Solid Minerals gave the president an update on Ajaokuta Steel Company with a view to revitalizing it soon. I hope that I wanted to give you that soundbite, but I guess technology is speaking louder than humans right now. Well, to our major story of the day, it took a while before the 2017 budget was passed. In between the drafting and the passage of the document, there were a lot of drama. I'll spare you with the details for today. Now that we have all the budget in for 2017, though 2017 is just a few months away, the implementation phase is now the big deal. How well is the team involved doing? Today, the Minister of Finance, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, and her budget and national planning counterpart, Senator Udo Udoma, appeared before the Senate Committee on Appropriation led by Senator Danjuma Goje. The meeting between the executive and the legislature is expected to tidy the working relationship and continuously support the economy to forestall relapse to recession. The ministers and senators deliberated on Nigeria's economy, fiscal and monetary policies, synergy among agencies of government. The Minister for Budget and National Planning, Senator Udoma, said Nigeria is on the right track. Well, let me show you some of the highlights of the funding and implementation of this 2017 budget. Well, saying that getting the January-December financial year right, and also synergy between fiscal and monetary policies, also looking at balancing recurrent and capital expenditure, taking care of salaries shortfalls. Those are perhaps some of the highlights of today's deliberation between the executive and the legislature. Let's get a sense of it, everyone. What does this mean for Nigeria? The implementation. The reins are still here with us. Has the executive been able to reasonably implement the budget, knowing well that half of this time after the passage of the budget, it's been raining? What could they have done? Well, let's get into it. I have some very knowledgeable fellows here in the studio. I have Mr. Curtis Adigba, a lawyer and a policy analyst. He joins us here in our Lagos studio. Many thanks, Mr. Curtis, for joining us on the program. I also have a former Cambridge professor, Professor Anthony Killer, a political anthropologist. Thank you so much for joining us on the program tonight, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me.
Let's get some financial perspectives to this one. Each time I'm a bit confused about the issues of numbers because it scares me. I call on one person. He's Bismarck Iwani. He's the executive director of financial derivatives. He's there in his office, in the comfort of his office in the VI Lagos. We get to him once we are able to reconnect with him. Let's come back to the studio here. Let me begin with you, Mr. Curtis Adigba. Legally speaking, the budget here is not balanced, is it?
Yeah, it's not.
So at this moment, when the legislature is appearing before, the executive is appearing before the legislature, what does this mean?
Well, I think it's a crisis kind of situation. The people are anticipating that we're going to have major failure from the budget expectations. And so you see people trying to shift left, right, and center. But the reality is, again, it stares us clearly in the face. And we have to go back to what happened before the budget was passed. It took so long. I mean, we couldn't get our acts together. This is not a fire brigade approach. You don't run a country on the basis of fire brigade approach. You wait until there's fire, and then you put the fire out. No, you prepare to prevent a fire from breaking out in the first place. And Nigerians were shouting about this. You know, it didn't make sense to those who pulled the strings. But then, this is what we have. You understand? I mean, you must spend the money. The attitude that I see from the National Assembly is like, look, you must spend the money because the budget has been signed into law, okay? It does not matter whether it is conducive or not. But I think public officials in Nigeria need to be more sacrificial in their approach to governance.
Professor Killer, are you aghast by what we're seeing presently? The executive will tell you about over 1 trillion naira is put into the capital expenditure, which is perhaps not something that we've seen in a long time. But this time around, the lawmakers are worried that just about 300 billion so far has been plowed in from the budget this year alone. What is your take with what we have seen so far? We're out of recession in the first quarter, out of this leg. What do you see?
Well, I think what we have is a structural flaw. We have a flawed relationship between the executive and the legislative arm of government. To use a simple language, they look like stepbrothers of a polygamous family where the father is weak and not very charismatic. Normally in a presidential system, what you have is these arms of government work together. The legislative and executive work together, especially where you have a majority. That is the advantage of having a majority. You have shared vision and you have meeting points in which you discuss things. What we have at the moment is the legislators, in fairness to them, they are doing their job. You see, there's a problem. The National Assembly at the moment has a deficit of credibility. So they have that burden they're carrying. So even when they say it is raining, too many people still doubt them. They are seen to have a burden of credibility. But in reality, what they're saying makes sense. You know, what they're saying is, you have a budget which should last from time A to time C. We are in time B and 3/4. And you haven't spent 3/4 of the amount. What's going on? So it's a legitimate question. They just have, you know, a problem of their credibility, which makes it sound as if they have a hidden agenda all the time. But I think the government, the executive arm needs to do more. I think the executive arm needs to find a way. They talk about synergy between agencies. Somebody needs to sit down and say, let us find a way to work together with the legislative arm of government. And I think that is what is missing now, you know. And when I talked about that stepsons of a unhappy polygamous family, you need a rallying point. You see, in polygamous families where people might be quarrelsome, when you have a good rallying point, who is normally the father, there is a joy to try to please the father because everybody goes towards that. And that is what is missing here.
All right.